So we're learning a new term today. It's called foil, and we're looking specifically at what is a foil in literature. The basic definition is a foil is a person who is paired with another character to develop the other's trait and personality by contrast. So automatically you can assume maybe it's the protagonist and antagonist, but that's not necessarily so. So the purpose of the foil is to be drastically different. In fiction, a foil is a character who contrasts with another character. Most of the time, it's probably going to be the protagonist. This is from Legends of Sleepy Hollow. And it's going to highlight particular qualities of the other character. And as you see, Brom right here would be drastically different than Ichabod, who is the main character. But it's supposed to bring qualities or showcase qualities that either the character doesn't have, or maybe that the character has better, maybe that the character is weak in. So here's a visual, and this definition talks about the foil being a minor character to the protagonist, and that the traits are in contrast. And we're going to actually talk about that a little bit, about what traits could you see. Mostly it's going to emphasize something with your main character. So how do you figure out that foil in literature? What's the first thing you first notice about the two characters? And they're going to be in some kind of contrast that you can pick up as the reader. What are the outer characteristics? Because you are looking at their physicality as well. Here we have another example of Ichabod and Brom in Legend of Sleepy Hollow. And obviously Ichabod looks totally different than Brom, who's supposed to be stronger and more confident. And then you're looking and focusing on the inner characteristics. What do you notice about their personalities that are different? And then overall, what is the last thing that you notice about the two characters? How the author wrote them in, maybe dialogue from other characters about that character. But specifically, you're looking, how are they different? And it'll be very easy sometimes to pick out. So who exactly is the foil? Usually the foil is going to contrast the protagonist. However, that's not always the case. In the classic good guy versus bad guy scenario, both the hero and the villain can be considered each other's foils, and that each acts to show how the other behaves in certain situations. So Voldemort and Harry, when it came to Voldemort wanted power and Harry wanted love and friendship, so how they respond to it. The other side of that is that sidekicks can often serve as foils. They can be something that the hero or villain himself is not. For example, if the hero or villain is a hothead, the sidekick could be calm and practical. In Aladdin, Jafar had a sidekick in that little bird, where Aladdin had the sidekick in the genie. So they'll have those qualities that the hero doesn't have. Some sidekick foils that are just something that reoccurs in literature: tomboy versus the girly girl, brains versus brawn. You'll have the cowardly sidekick, maybe the evil twin. You'll have someone foolish to someone very intelligent. These are all very classic foils that you see in literature. In Anne Frank, who is the foil to Anne Frank? The foil actually is her sister Margot Frank, where Anne is her and her mom fight a lot. Margot gets along with the mom and is still very childish in certain things and naive, where Margot is not. In Twilight, we have Edward. So who is the foil to Edward? And I'll give you a hint. It has to do with the love triangle. You guessed it right. It is Jacob. Jacob has qualities that Edward doesn't have, and vice versa. Who is the foil to Cinderella in Cinderella? It is the stepsisters. You could even say it is the stepmom. Any of those could be Cinderella's foil. Who would be the foil to Katniss? In this case, most people would probably say President Snow, but he doesn't get as much screen time with Katniss. And Katniss's foil is more of a sidekick in this particular one, and it's Peeta. Katniss has certain strengths. Peeta has certain strengths. They're foil to each other. So the question that you need to consider is that Romeo and Juliet, who are their foils? With Juliet, there's two possibilities that I want you to think about. With Romeo, who would be his, and Mercutio, who would be his foil. So that is what we're going to delve into, and I want you to jot down who you think their foils are, Juliet, Romeo, and Mercutio, and bring them to class tomorrow, and we're going to have a discussion about it.